She arrived to scrub floors and wipe counters, expecting another long day of cleaning a mansion that echoed with wealth but felt hollow. Instead, she found a piercing cry that led her to a nursery, where a baby's desperate wails broke her heart and changed a millionaire's life forever. Tanya Johnson stepped off the bus at 6:45 a.m., her cleaning bag slung over her shoulder, the weight of it familiar after years of hauling it across the city. The air was crisp, and the gated community of Willow Heights loomed ahead, its manicured lawns and towering homes a world apart from her modest apartment. She adjusted her scarf, took a deep breath, and walked toward the address she'd been given by the agency. 17 Crestwood Lane, the residence of Ethan Caldwell, a name that carried weight in business circles. Tanya didn't follow high finance, but she'd heard enough to know he was a man who turned millions into billions. Her job was simple: clean his house, leave it spotless, and move on to the next gig. She didn't expect to find anything but dirty dishes and dusty shelves. The gate buzzed open after she pressed the intercom, and Tanya made her way up the long driveway. The house was a modern marvel, all glass and steel, with windows that reflected the morning sun like mirrors. She knocked, but no one answered. The agency had told her the client might not be home, so she used the key code they'd provided and let herself in. The foyer was grand, with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than her yearly rent. She set her bag down and started her routine, pulling out her supplies and mentally mapping the house. But then she heard it, a faint, high-pitched sound, like a siren in the distance. Tanya paused, her sponge hovering over the kitchen counter. The sound grew louder, unmistakable now, a baby crying. Her brow furrowed. The agency hadn't mentioned a child. She set the sponge down and followed the sound, her sneakers squeaking softly on the polished floor. The cries led her upstairs, down a hallway lined with abstract art, to a door slightly ajar. She hesitated, then pushed it open. Inside was a nursery, soft blue walls adorned with clouds and stars. In the crib, a baby, no more than 6 months old, wailed, his tiny face red and streaked with tears. His fists flailed, and his cries were raw, as if he'd been at it for a while. Tanya's heart clenched. She glanced around, expecting a parent or nanny to appear, but the room was empty. The diaper bag on the changing table was unzipped, bottles and wipes scattered as if someone had left in a hurry. She approached the crib, her voice soft. "Oh, little one, what's wrong? Where's your mama?" The baby's cries didn't stop, but they softened slightly at the sound of her voice. Tanya's instincts kicked in. She'd raised 2 kids of her own, now grown and out of the house, and she knew a hungry or neglected cry when she heard one. She checked the crib for anything dangerous, then gently lifted the baby, cradling him against her chest. His sobs hiccuped, and she rocked him, humming a tune her grandmother used to sing. "Sure, it's okay, sweetheart. I got you." She checked his diaper, soggy but not terrible, and changed him with practiced hands, using supplies from the changing table. The baby, still fussy, latched onto her shoulder, his cries turning to whimpers. Tanya noticed a bottle on the table, half full of formula, but it was cold. She carried the baby downstairs to the kitchen, warming the bottle under running water while bouncing him gently. "You're hungry, aren't you? Let's fix that." As she fed him, the baby's eyes locked onto hers, wide and brown, his tiny hand gripping her finger. Tanya smiled, her heart warming despite the strangeness of the situation. She glanced around the pristine kitchen, wondering where his parents were. The house felt too quiet, too empty. She pulled out her phone and called the agency, balancing the baby on her hip. "Hi, it's Tanya Johnson at the Caldwell job," she said when her supervisor, Marla, picked up. "There's a baby here, crying his head off, and no one else around." "Was this in the notes?" Marla sounded surprised. "A baby? No, nothing about that. The client said it's just him, no family mentioned. Maybe a nanny's supposed to be there." "Well, there's no nanny, and this little guy was alone," Tanya said, her voice firm but calm. "I'm feeding him now, but someone needs to figure out what's going on." Marla promised to call the client and get back to her. Tanya hung up, the baby now dozing in her arms, his bottle empty. She settled into a plush armchair in the living room, careful not to disturb him. The house was silent again, save for the soft ticking of a clock on the mantel. She studied the room, expensive furniture, no personal touches, no photos. It felt like a showroom, not a home. An hour passed before Tanya heard the front door open. She tensed, the baby stirring in her arms. Footsteps echoed in the foyer, and a man appeared in the doorway. He was tall, mid-30s, with sharp features and a tailored suit that screamed money. His dark hair was slightly mussed, and his eyes were tired, shadowed with something heavier than fatigue. This had to be Ethan Caldwell. He froze when he saw Tanya, his gaze flicking from her to the baby. "Who are you?" His voice was clipped, authoritative. "Tanya Johnson, from the cleaning agency," she said, keeping her tone even. "I found this baby crying upstairs. No one else was here." Ethan's expression shifted, a mix of confusion and something like guilt. He stepped closer, his eyes on the baby, who was now sleeping soundly, a small fist curled against Tanya's chest. "That's my son, Lucas." Tanya nodded, sensing the weight behind his words. "He was hungry and needed a change. I took care of it, but he was alone when I got here." "Where's his caregiver?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "The nanny quit yesterday. I thought I had it handled until I could hire someone new. I had an early meeting, so I left him with a neighbor, but she must have brought him back." Tanya's lips pressed into a thin line, but she kept her voice neutral. "He's okay now, but babies this age can't be left alone, Mr. Caldwell." He was real upset. Ethan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Tanya thought he might snap back. But then his shoulders sagged, and he looked at Lucas, his expression softening. "I know. I'm not good at this. His mother passed away when he was born, and I've been trying to figure it out." Tanya's heart softened at that. She'd lost her own husband years ago, and she knew the ache of raising kids alone. But she also knew neglect when she saw it, even if it wasn't intentional. "He needs someone steady, someone who's there," she said gently. "He's a sweet boy." Ethan nodded, his eyes still on Lucas. "How did you get him to calm down?" "He's been fussy for weeks, even with the nanny." Tanya shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Just held him, fed him, sang a little. Babies need to feel safe." Ethan studied her, something shifting in his gaze. "You're good with him." "I raised 2 of my own," she said simply. "You learn what works." He hesitated, then said, "Could you stay a bit longer? Just until I sort this out? I'll pay you double what the agency's charging." Tanya considered it. She had another job lined up, but the agency could reassign it. And Lucas, still nestled against her, felt like a responsibility she couldn't walk away from yet. "I'll stay until noon," she said. "But you need to call the agency and let them know." Ethan nodded, pulling out his phone. Tanya watched him step into the hall, his voice low as he spoke to Marla. When he returned, he seemed less guarded, though still distant. "They're fine with it. Thank you, Ms. Johnson." "Tanya's fine," she said. "And you're welcome." Over the next few hours, Tanya cared for Lucas while Ethan worked in his home office, occasionally peeking out to check on them. She fed the baby again, changed him, and played with him on a soft blanket in the living room, coaxing tiny giggles from him. Each time Ethan passed by, he lingered a moment longer, watching Lucas smile in a way Tanya suspected he hadn't seen often. Around 11 a.m., Ethan emerged, his tie loosened. "He's never that happy with me," he said, almost to himself. Tanya looked up from tickling Lucas's toes. "He's happy because he's his dad. He just needs to know you're here. Try sitting with him." Ethan hesitated, then sat on the blanket, looking unsure. Tanya handed Lucas to him, guiding his hands to support the baby's head. Lucas squirmed at first, but Tanya stayed close, encouraging Ethan to talk to him. "Just let him hear your voice. Tell him anything." Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. "Hey, buddy. It's Dad. I'm here." His voice was stiff at first, but as Lucas settled, he kept going, telling him about the stars, something about constellations he'd read about recently. Lucas's eyes widened, and he cooed, reaching for Ethan's finger. Tanya smiled, standing to give them space. "See? He knows you." Ethan looked at his son, his expression raw, like a wall had crumbled. "I've been so focused on work. I didn't know how to do this. I thought money could fix it, hiring help." "Money's good for a lot," Tanya said, "but not for raising a child. That's about showing up, every day. Ethan nodded, absorbing her words. When Tanya left that day, Ethan asked her to return the next day, not as a cleaner, but to help with Lucas until he found a new nanny. She agreed, sensing he needed more than childcare advice. Over the next few weeks, Tanya became a fixture at 17 Crestwood Lane. She cared for Lucas, teaching Ethan how to soothe him, feed him, and read to him. Ethan started coming home earlier, canceling late meetings to spend time with his son. Tanya noticed small changes. The house felt less sterile, with toys scattered and a photo of Lucas now on the mantelpiece. Ethan asked her about her life, her kids, her struggles, and she shared, finding him a better listener than she'd expected. One evening, as Tanya prepared to leave, Ethan handed her an envelope. "A thank you," he said, "and an offer. I'd like you to be Lucas's nanny, full-time. You're better for him than anyone else could be." Tanya opened the envelope, her eyes widening at the figure inside, a check for $50,000, labeled as a gratitude bonus. She shook her head, handing it back. "This is too much, Ethan. I didn't do this for money." "I know," he said, his voice steady. "That's why I want you to have it. You didn't just help Lucas, you showed me how to be his father. Please, take it the offer, at least consider it." Tanya hesitated, then nodded. "I'll think about it. But for now, I'll keep coming for Lucas." She took the job, not for the money, but because Lucas had wormed his way into her heart, and Ethan, too, in his own way. Over time, Ethan changed. He prioritized Lucas, scaled back his work, and even started a foundation for single parents, inspired by Tanya's stories of raising her kids alone. The mansion no longer felt hollow, it echoed with laughter, with life. Tanya's presence had been a catalyst, her compassion a quiet force that reshaped a millionaire's world. She'd come to clean, but she'd done so much more. She'd brought a father and son together, proving that sometimes the greatest acts of change begin with the smallest acts of care.